Welcome back in, everybody, to a Tuesday edition of Birds 365 here on JAKIB Sports. I'm Zander, Krause, your host. Give me a follow on X at Real Zander. That's John McMullen, my co-host, the number one Eagles beat reporter in town. Give him a follow on X at JF McMullen. Johnny Mac, it's time to talk offense and the fun stuff. Jalen Hurts, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith. You know, what people love to talk about in the modern NFL. Have you seen enough from this offense, John, to believe they can keep this up consistently and be a top 5 offense in the NFL, competing with the best of the best in the league, with a high-powered passing game and keeping up with the best?
Yeah, I don't see any reason why it shouldn't be top 5 if everybody stays relatively healthy, of course. They were ninth coming into that game, and everybody thought they stunk. So, they're so talented that I think they're going to get to that level. And I haven't checked to see what they are this week, coming out of that game. So they probably went up, but I don't. And I said this on Gil's show yesterday because he asked me, can they look the way, basically, can they look like Detroit? And my answer to that was no. I don't think they can because they don't play that style of offense. And I think that's the style that people want, if that makes sense. And I just think they're unique because of the quarterback. And they do things differently because of the quarterback. And people take that negatively. It's not negative. It's just different. So their top 5 is going to look different than Detroit's top 5. And I think people want, and forget about a current team. I think they want, if you look at, they want high volume passing. They want Kurt Warner. They want greatest show on turf. And I don't think you're ever going to see that. If that makes sense. And I think that's what the Eagles want and everybody craves, but you got to embrace the uniqueness of the player. And I think the Eagles are starting to do that. Again, the NFL sends out these statistics after the early games every week. They call it 7 from Sunday or something like that. So he had he had 4 touchdowns, obviously 3 rushing, 1 passing, 132.5 passer rating. So he had 2 rushing touchdowns and a 119.3 passer rating against the Giants. That's the first player in NFL history with multiple rushing touchdowns and a passer rating of 100 or higher in consecutive games. Never been done before.
Yeah.
Then he became the second player in NFL history with 3 rushing touchdowns, a touchdown pass, and a passer rating of 130 or higher. Has happened one other time in 1972. Like, he can do things that nobody else can do. And you have to embrace that instead of, I want him to be like this, I want him to be like that.
Right.
So it's kind of half and half. Are they going to be a top 5 offense? Yes. Is it going to look like people want it to look? Probably not, because it's going to be clunky at times. And then you're going to look up and you go, oh shit, they're better than almost everybody else.
To me, it seems like and this is no knock on Jalen. I think it's more of the reality. I mean, and you just, I think, phrased it beautifully with the way he plays the game and the type of playmaker that he is. I think it's going to look different consistently. Like, some days you're going to win passing the ball, some days you're going to win running the ball, some days it's going to be an AJ day, some days it's going to be a Saquon day.
Dick says that every week, and nobody listens.
I think it's just, like the Detroit. When you have a quarterback that has so many different skill sets, I think that's the inevitable reality, right? Like Jared Goff, we talk about Detroit a lot on the show. Jared Goff does certain things well and other things not so well. His skill set is very defined, which is why Detroit can approach the games the same way because they know what they're going to get from their quarterback, where what the expectation is. Jalen can do everything. So some days different things are working, and it seems like that's why, the lack of identity, I know you hate that word, if you will, seems to be there because some days they're going to run, some days they're going to pass. I still think balanced approach is the best thing, but I don't know if you're going to get that every single week.
Well, that depends on the personality of the game. That's
Yeah, right.
why I don't like that term because I mean that it's not like I'm Nostradamus and I can predict things.
Right.
If they're winning by 2 scores in the fourth quarter, they run 14 out of 15 times. If they're winning by 10 points in the fourth quarter, they run 14 out of 18 times. I mean, if they're losing by 10 points, they will be throwing every down. I for the life of me, that's the one thing I can't understand why people can't wrap their heads around. That's the personality of the game. So, and when Nick Sirianni talks about identity and he hates that term and he talks about habits and physical, those are things you can build on because those are things that are going to be there each week. Sometimes you're going to have to throw it 40 times. Sometimes you're going to run it 40 times. Like you can't go in a game and say, I'm going to run it 27 times and I'm going to throw it 27 times. Well, I guess you can.
Yeah, right.
But
It's not going to be the right formula.
yeah, it just doesn't work that way. And, if you look at a particular week, sometimes you have a feel for it. Like I'm pretty sure they're thinking this week against Jacksonville, they're in a pretty good shape. Now, you don't want to take things for granted either, but you should be ahead in the fourth quarter and you should be able to close it out by running again, maybe 14 out of 15 times. And
John, last week,
for that crowd, it'll be great, but they don't understand what's going on. At some point, whether you mention all those quarterbacks, at some point, they're going to need to throw the football to win a game in the fourth quarter. I think we all know that. And they're going to be capable of doing that, or they should be capable of doing that.
last week, John, we talked about Jalen Hurts. We talked about some of the concerns. Obviously, the Greg Cosell bit went pretty big last week, and we spoke about that on the show. And does a game like that alleviate some of the concerns with Jalen Hurts? And I think the reason you can say maybe it does, at least for me, is you haven't seen it in a little bit, and I thought that was one of his best all-around games in quite a bit for me. And it did alleviate some concern because I think it was a semblance of him getting back to, the 22 form of him playing like an MVP player. And I've consistently said we're going to go as far as Jalen's going to take us. Now, he's got to do it consistently. I get it. You're not going to win a Super Bowl in October. I understand all those things, but I did think it was a very positive sign from the quarterback. Is that an overreaction by me, or did he alleviate some of your concerns as well?
No, I mean, he played a good game. I don't take much out of it other than he played a good game. I still have processing concerns. He's still one of the quarterbacks, he's still over 3 seconds when it comes to throwing the football. And I talk about it all the time. He was at 2.78 during the Super Bowl season. I don't want him to be Tua, who, gets the ball out quicker than he should, to be honest. But I want him to be back to middle of the pack. You know who's 2.78 right now? The exact number, 2.78. Jordan Love. 2.77 Matthew Stafford. Right now, that's their numbers. Goff is 2.74. He's 3.07. Up in Lamar Jackson territory and Justin Fields territory, who I always joke you need a sundial to measure Justin Fields' processing. It's not good. And then the worst are Brock Purdy and Sam Darnold, but that's explainable by the offensive structures they're in. They're always taking shots down the field. They're always long developing routes. They're traditional play action. So that part of their issues are baked into their offenses. It's not the case with Jalen as much, and that's why his number's a little bit more troubling. You got to be lower than Justin Fields, I'll tell you that. Lamar's special. He's at 307 for a reason as well, and Jalen's special, and he's part of that is because of his extend playability.
Right. I was going to say
that part of it. But again, we have this large sample size now. And he was over 3 in 2021. He was over 3 in 2023. He's over 3 now. And the 1 year is at 2.78. This is the one stat I latched onto. If he can get back to 2.78, I think that's optimal.
What was he on Sunday?
Did it come out? Have these are overall numbers. I have to go through the next gen stat stuff, but I'll try to do that in the break. But he didn't move. I think it was 3.07 coming in, and he's 3.07 coming out. So might have been a tick either way, but it didn't go up. It didn't go down.
Good stuff there from Johnny Mack. Offense progressing nicely. Devontae Smith had a big day, John. Great deep ball throw. I know you said that they were going to try and work him in early. His first pass catch, John, went for I think -2 yards again, and I was like, but he had the big touchdown. Throw.
Bubble screen, yeah, bubble screen.
Yeah, the stupid the dumb bubble screens that they still love, but I get it.
Well, everybody does. I mean, that's modern football. I mean,
yeah,
there's not a team in the NFL that doesn't run multiple bubble screens a game. And, the Eagles don't seem to do it well, though. Like the Rams did it well with Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua back. They did it really well. But maybe it's just, Puka's a really good blocker. I don't know. They just don't do it well.
No, they're not very good. They really never have been. I mean, I don't remember a time when they were good at the bubble screen, but I thought Devontae had a nice day, and it's good to see the receivers getting involved. We always knew they were. I think the Devontae thing was overblown. Everyone's like, "Oh, I'm happy to see Devontae get involved." Well, he had the concussion, and then they had the game where he had -2, and then he got involved this week. It wasn't really like a long stretch of games where Devontae wasn't involved.
No, he's had these games in the past, and that's where. They have a lot of playmakers, and sometimes the ball is not going to come your way. But, I think Devontae's proven himself that I wouldn't be too worried about him. He's going to make plays when it's there, and they look a lot better on offense when Devontae and AJ are involved, to say the least.
Yeah, no doubt about it. So we'll see how they continue to progress. John, that's 2 straight games, though. Looking at the trends, it's 2 straight games that the Eagles were on the road and they beat their opponent by 20 or more points. They beat the Giants last week by 25, and they beat the Bengals by 20 this week. Pretty impressive to go on the road 2 straight weeks in the NFL and clap 2 opponents, especially after the trend that was being talked about where Philly just couldn't beat a team big. I mean, I thought that was overblown. It's the NFL, but you remember that trend that was going around a couple weeks ago. Eagles ended up beating the team by more than 7 or whatever it was, in however many weeks. And
now they're dominating. Yeah, now they're dominating. Yeah, but I because too many people, and then the Giants, they played okay against Pittsburgh last night. A lot better than they played against the Eagles.
Yeah. I think Russell Wilson looks pretty good, doesn't he?
Yeah. He went down with the calf injury, and people are keep Justin Fields. No, don't keep Justin Fields. Come on. Yeah, they look a lot better. They're
Did Russ get hurt?
6-2.
You know what? I was watching the World Series last night. I checked out of the game. Did he get hurt in that game?
Who, Russell?
Yeah.
I don't know. I was watching mainly World Series as well. I don't know why, but I was watching mainly. I don't think he got hurt.
Yeah, you and me both.
I don't think he got hurt significantly. I haven't seen anything.
Oh, I thought you just mentioned that. I guess I misinterpreted that.
No, Justin Fields is hurt, but he was the third emergent. But a lot of people when Russell got hurt with the calf injury, I was alluding to my calf injury. He was out for a long time, and week 1, I remember Pittsburgh was like, he might play with the calf injury, and then he's out 6 weeks or whatever. It's like ridiculous. It's not just the Eagles. People are ridiculous with this injury information in the NFL. And I'm surprised the NFL lets them get away with it because gambling is such a big aspect to it. But that's a different tangent we can go down someday. But yeah, Russell Wilson, I'm trying to say, is much better even at this stage than Justin Fields. And Pittsburgh, by the way, is 6-2, and they're going to be over 500 again. I think 18 consecutive years, 500 or above for Mike Tomlin. Talk about that is a Hall of Fame coach, Mike Tomlin.
No doubt. They do it right in Pittsburgh. John, looking around the NFL, man, there's a lot of shitty teams in the NFL. Now, this might change because we're still only in week 8, but I mean, if you look at the teams that have like a 2-win or 1-win season right now, I mean, there's a lot of them. There's a lot of 2-6 teams.
Yeah, the NFC is much deeper than the AFC.
I know the AFC. I mean, here, let me just give you a rundown. Dolphins are 2-5, Patriots 2-6, Jets 2-6. That's 3 teams in the AFC East with only 2 wins. AFC West, you have the 2-6 Raiders. AFC North, you have the 2-6 Browns and the 3-5 Bengals. AFC South, you have the 2-6 Jaguars and the 1-6 Titans. That's just in the AFC. In the NFC, you have the New York Giants are 2-6, and the Cowboys are 3-4. That's the NFC East. The Rams are 3-4, but the NFC West isn't too bad. It's kind of a bunch of middling teams right now. NFC North is a pretty good division, and then the NFC South. Yeah,
great NFC North is.
They might be the best division in football right now. NFC South, 1-7 Panthers, 2-6 Saints. I mean, it's a battle, John. It's a battle of the tank right now. If you want that first overall pick, you got some major competition in terms of teams that suck.
Yeah, and this is the time of year where teams start to realize how bad they are. I always used to tell Jody, you don't want to play a bad team early because they still have some hope. They still have some confidence. And everybody's got good players in the NFL. But then as it becomes human nature comes into it. You talk about some of these teams that, the Jags coming in here. I mean, they're cooked, and then they're saying, "Woe is me. We're down 3 receivers probably." Eagles are probably going to boat race that team.
Yeah, I'm my early projection would be a boat race in that game.
Yeah. Titans Patriots. I mean, come on. Should they even play that game? I would argue it should be removed from the schedule, struck from the schedule. The Giants are in that category. The Commanders are going to roll over them because they're dead in the water. The Saints and the Panthers. I mean, the Saints losing their quarterback. Maybe they get some juice when Derek Carr comes back, but they're terrible. The Jets, we know what's going on with the Jets. Poor Joe Douglas is going to lose his job. Yeah, this is the time of year where you'll see some more of those non-one score games because some of these teams just tap out and say, all right. And the first sign of adversity, they say, all right, here comes the snowball. We're just going to roll over.
Yeah, right. Yeah, no doubt. I mean, you're right. I mean, you get to 2-8, 2-9, 2-10, somewhere in that range. Your team is just you're not even. Some of these dudes probably won't even be trying anymore, trying to not get hurt at that point.
Business
It is
decision.
interesting, man, how many bad teams there are in the NFL right now.
Yeah, I mean,
Are any of them better than they project? I mean,
well, New Orleans is better than they look because they lost their quarterback.
the Jets are probably better than 2-6, but they haven't shown it.
Yeah, they haven't shown it. They have more
The Dolphins
talent.
are kind of better than 2-5 now that they got
Yeah,
Tua back. They lost a nail biter on Sunday.
yeah, they're better.
Raiders suck. Browns suck. Browns got a win with Jameis. How about that over the Ravens?
Browns don't suck. I'd put them in the don't suck category. I talked about that during the Eagles week. They got a lot of good players. They just had a ton of injuries, and a bad quarterback. Not that Jameis is good, but you get same thing happened to Carolina. They look terrible. They look like the worst team in history, and they still do, but they're a lot better with Andy Dalton healthy than with Bryce Young. Same thing with Jameis Winston. Not that you're going to win consistently, but they're better right away. And those teams have some talent to not so much the Panthers. I was thinking of the Saints, but when the Saints get Derek Carr back, they're capable. Not that they're great, but they're capable of winning a game.
Right.
Same thing with Browns. Browns got a lot of good. Browns could be the team that you get a new coach, a new quarterback, and they could be a playoff team overnight. Overnight.
How the hell did they get out of the Watson contract?
Well, that's the problem. But you got to pay him. You set him there as a backup quarterback. You take your medicine. They already have the players in place to be a playoff team. Not saying a Super Bowl contender. They were a playoff team last year with Joe freaking Flacco. Nick Chubb gets healthy. Nick Chubb, Myles Garrett, that offensive line. Wyatt Teller's back. JOK at linebacker. That right there, that core, that's a playoff core.
Yeah, no, they got a lot of good players, definitely. But I think they're just stuck in purgatory with the quarterback.
Oh yeah, definitely. But again, if you get Joe Flacco level play, they make the playoffs. Not saying they're going to be a Super Bowl contender, but just a playoff contender.
Yeah, so find a guy that you can keep on the veteran minimum and just sit your $54 million a year quarterback. That might be your best method for winning in Cleveland right now.
Sadly, yeah.
Yeah. Let's go to General JD, who checks in with a super chat. Appreciate everybody on here this morning. Make sure you guys hit that like button. Almost 500 on YouTube. Appreciate everybody for tuning in on Birds 365. We're growing like a weed, and we appreciate all of you guys. If you really love Birds 365, you should share us with a friend, because I think all Eagles fans should be listening to the show, but we appreciate the ones that do. General JD says, J-Mac, could you see Nolan Smith possibly playing off-ball linebacker after seeing Bond having success? Wonder if Nolan could ever thrive or help there. Go Birds. Go Birds, JD.
Well, he played a little bit off-ball linebacker last year when they got him on the field late because they needed they had some issues from an injury standpoint. But no, I mean, no, he's an edge rusher. And Zach's playing well. Why would you want to move? He's finally showing something. Why would you want to move Nolan Smith to off-ball linebacker?
He finally looks like an edge rusher.
Yeah. But he can do it in a pinch. I assume you mean if Zach gets hurt or something of that nature, but then it would be Oren Burks or Jeremiah Trotter Jr. Were our natural linebackers. So no, it's not happening this year. Unless they go really deep on the injury wire. And Nolan right now is the third edge rusher in the rotation. So he's got a role. He's finally playing well. He's finally playing better. I'm not going to overstate it. I'm not going to say he's there, but he's.
I feel like he's the second in the rotation.
Well,
not yet, I know, but to me, he looks like it to me.
Well, I think they're trying to manage, the pitch count, so to speak, with Brandon a little bit more. But still in the big spot, I think they're going to lean on Brandon. just at blowout games. Again, I think people that's another thing. They look at the snap counts over the past 2 games, not indicative of what it would be in a close game. Changes a little bit. You can give Nolan a little bit more work, give Brandon a little bit less work. Whereas if you're in a tight game, 23-23 in the fourth quarter, you're probably going to up Brandon, probably going to lower Nolan a little bit. Maybe that changes because he is playing better, but I do think people get fooled by you gotta pay attention to all levels of context. That snap numbers are the snap numbers over the past 2 weeks for a reason. And that's not necessarily going to translate. You might see it again this week because I think they're going to boat race Jacksonville again. At some point, it's going to be a close game, and I think things are going to change and get back to where it was before the little run here.
Yeah, I mean, he's outsnapped Bryce Huff. I know you just kind of added the context to it, but shit, man, I don't know what's going on.
Well, I'm talking about Brandon more than Bryce.
Yeah.
With Bryce, it's like, I don't know. I just don't think Vic likes him.
I don't I don't either. I wanted to talk about Jordan Davis too, but I know you add context there, but I do wonder what they're going to end up doing with Jordan Davis. Look at my man Akbar checks in. He's the one who was putting Nolan Smith on the bum juice. Now he's mad at me for campaigning. Akbar, he had 1 sack and 21 starts in the NFL. He's got 3 in the last 3 weeks. He's getting around the edge. He's doing a great job. He's setting the edge well. He's playing good against the run. He's hustling back 28 yards to make a tackle upfield. I mean, I like Nolan Smith right now. I'm giving him credit where it's due. John, I want to talk about Jordan Davis real quick before we get to Chris Franklin, who's coming up. Jordan Davis was outsnapped again by Milton Williams and more with Jomo. He did grade out really well. But the interesting part about Jordan Davis is he's kind of in that contract year where Howie doesn't like to pick up the 5th-year option. He was a 13th overall pick. I know he's been good as a nose, kind of, but what are they going to end up doing, you think, with Jordan Davis?
Yeah, it's a difficult decision from that standpoint.
Yeah, it is.
From Vic's standpoint, he doesn't give a shit. Like, he's going to use him in his role, and as long as he's here, I think he's effective in that role. But yeah, there are 2 different questions here. You know, do you want to pay for that role at the level of the 13th overall pick? I wouldn't. You know, so to me, they're 2 different conversations. But in the short term, you're fine. In the long term, you know, and Howie said this, you know, he's got to develop into a 3-down player.
Yeah.
He's not developed into a 3-down player.
I mean, if he can't play the 4-man front, I don't think they're even going to pick up the 5th-year option.
No, probably not. They'll probably wait. And, you know, yeah, I mean, I knew it was going to be an issue on day one. There was a lot of people who projected that he can do different things. I remember talking to Damo all the time about he can be an edge rusher. And I love Damo to death, but I'm like looking at him like, what?
Yeah, no.
So there were a lot of people because of his size and his athleticism that projected pass rushing success. And I just never saw it. I still haven't seen it. Now, you'd like him to get a little bit better with the traditional nose tackle mentality of pushing the pocket more consistently. So there's room to improve. But as a 2-down player, I think he's a very good player. But is that worth the 13th pick in the draft? No. Is it worth the 5th-year option for the 13th pick in the draft? Probably not. But he's very good at his job. So I thought it would be a problem, and here we are. It's a problem. But not for Vic. Vic didn't draft him, and Vic says, I got a good 2-down run defender. I'm going to play him as a 2-down run defender. And he gets the occasional snap in, you know, four-man fronts. And he got quite a bit of them in 4 because they played a lot of 4-man. So, and they played much more 4-man than 5-man. So he's going to get snaps there, but It's not going to be effective from a pass rushing standpoint.
You think he could be a potential trade candidate?
No. Stop.
Well, I'm just wondering. I mean,
No.
Howie doesn't
Who's
like to
going to
pick up
play
the
the
fifth year
run?
option. Huh?
Who's going to play the run?
I'm just
This
saying, Howie
defense.
doesn't like to pick up the fifth-year option. If you wait too long, he's going to have
I thought you meant by Tuesday of next week.
No, I more meant like probably after the year, just because he's not going to pick up the fifth-year option, I don't think. And if he did, you don't have any cap flexibility, so I don't think that's why Howie doesn't like to do that. I don't know. I'm just wondering what they could try and do with this guy.
They're going to run
I
it.
don't think Howie's going to just eat his loss and let him walk in free agency.
No, they're going to run it out and, play him for 4 years and then, discuss the next contract. And see how it shakes out at that particular time. But this defense would look a hell of a lot different if Jordan Davis wasn't here. And this defense wouldn't be as effective if Jordan Davis wasn't here. I will say that. So there's two sides to this story. And they've been looking for a backup to Jordan Davis for years, and they can't find one. And they brought in the kid from Baylor.
What the hell do we need a backup for? He's playing 20 snaps a game.
Because if he gets hurt like he did as a rookie, and then he had to go outside the organization to get Linval Joseph.
Yeah, I guess.
So they brought in Siaki Ika, who I thought the Eagles might draft, and he ended up going. I thought he would be a day 3 pick. He ended up going in the 3rd round, I think, and he just got released, and they picked him up on the practice squad. He's a big 335-pound guy. They've been looking for a backup nose tackle forever. Noah Ellis, on and on and on, and they just can't find those guys. They're hard to find. They're really hard to find.
But are they too obsessed with the 5-man front? Like they've been effective in the 4-man front with the other guys stepping up.
I mean, that ask Vic. I mean, that's part of the defense. That's a big part of the defense. And when it doesn't, like you go back to 2021, people didn't even know they were playing this scheme because they didn't have a nose tackle. Like it becomes much more difficult and much easier to run the football if you don't have that guy in the middle of this defense. And
John, can you look at double team percentages? Do you have that data?
No. I can get it. How do you find
that? Because Road Ranger says, "Do y'all watch?" Well, yes, Road, we watch. Thanks, bro. Davis gets double teamed damn near every snap. No, he doesn't. Jalen Carter has a higher rate of double teams, I'm pretty sure.
He does get double teamed a lot by design. That's part of the 5-man front issue. That the whole thing about Vic's defense is to keep the extra man in coverage. So we always talk about the +1 on offense, Jalen Hurts in the running game. The +1 on defense is the extra man in coverage. He always wants the extra man in coverage. To do that and to still fill gaps in run support, he uses that 5-man front. And when they were struggling, remember in New Orleans coming into that game, he went to the 6-man front he unleashed in Chicago back in the day that stopped the Sean McVay Rams. And that really worked well in New Orleans, who was running the football crazy at that particular time coming into that game. The whole idea is to play gap and a half, as they call it, although he hates that term. Vic hates that term, but that's what they're doing. So you're responsible for not the old school 3-4-2 gap, but you're responsible for a little bit on the opposite gap as well. And that enables you to keep that extra defender in coverage and cover yourself against the passing game as well. So that's the whole philosophy behind the scheme. And the nose tackle is a big part of that philosophy, a huge part of that philosophy. And Jordan Davis is a very important part of this defense. And I've said that from day one, but he's not what the people expect him to be, and that's an issue. Unfortunately, it's real when you're the 13th overall pick. In the moment, as I said, Vic Fangio doesn't give a flying you-know-what, and he's going to use them to win games. And right now, it's working out beautifully. But when you're talking about contracts and the other end of it, that becomes more complicated.
No doubt. Let's get to our commercial break. Was hoping to have Chris Franklin here this morning. Maybe he forgot. He came back from Cincinnati. We'll talk. 9:23.
That's my fault, by the way.
No worries. I emailed.
Oh, wait. No, Chris texted me. His computer's acting wonky. He's rebooting. So
he'll be in a second. Let's get to our commercial break. Appreciate everybody in the chat right now. Make sure you guys hit that like button for Birds 365 Nation. We've been growing, and we appreciate everybody for all of the support in the chat. Each and every one of you. Joe Whip, Daz, Shonuff, Keith Johnson. Keith, good to see you, man. Thanks for becoming a member this past weekend. Mike Fittery, Dominique Dabney. What's up, Dominique? I know sometimes you get upset with us, but I appreciate you being here. Jason Sparks is in here. Akbar Divine, my man Akbar, appreciate it. Spa City. Spa, your jersey. I just got the email. It's out for delivery. So your jersey, your Saquon jersey should arrive today, my friend. Good to see you in here on the chat. Appreciate each and every one of you. Anyone I missed, I didn't mean to miss you, but we do appreciate you being here. Jason A-Team, what's up, brother? Good to see everybody. Let's get to our commercial break, and we'll talk to Chris Franklin coming up next. Before I do that, let me tell you about the great people at BetUS. Go check out BetUS, everybody. They're a proud sponsor of JAKIB Sports and the 2-hour show here on Birds 365. You can see I put the promo code on the screen. It's YouTube 150. That gives you 150% sign-up bonus on your very first deposit, and you get 125% on your second and third deposit. So go check out betus.com.pa. That's betus.com.pa. They have the fastest payouts in the industry, 24/7 customer support, and they'll even give you your own custom account manager. So big thanks to them for sponsoring the show. Go check them out. We'll be back in 3 minutes on Birds 365.
If you missed any of today's show on the JAKIB Media channel, listen to the podcast on your way home. Available on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify.